Okay. Good evening and welcome to the August 17th, 2022 Ossining, the Town of Ossining Planning Board meeting. I'll ask everybody to introduce themselves and we'll, on my screen, Sandy, you want to start?
Sandy and Nellie, secretary.
Kathy? That didn't come out, Kathy. You wanna?
Kathy's the land use planning board attorney.
Okay. Valerie?
The planning board.
Donna?
Donna Sharrett, planning board member.
Margaret?
Margaret Kahn, secretary.
Jason?
Jason Mencher, planning board alternate.
Dan?
And Ciarcia, consulting engineer of the planning board.
Manny?
Yeah, Manny Enriquez, planning board member.
And I'm Carolyn Stevens, planning board chair. We have two items on the agenda this evening. The first one is 83 Summerstown Road. Is there anyone here? Is the applicant here for that, Sandy?
Yes, I'm promoting them now.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chairperson. Just being promoted to panelist.
Okay, good. Mr. Palmer, yes?
Yes, thank you. And my colleague, Andrew Lukanoff. And we also have somewhere in the in the Zoom background, Duncan Simpson, who is with Princeton Hydro. He is our ecologist that's on the project. So if we might be able to promote Duncan, assuming his name comes up correctly, at least I'll do the quick lead in.
Okay.
If you see fit, Chairwoman, Chairperson, for the record, my name is Taylor Palmer. I'm a partner with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader on behalf of the applicant, Rose Lodge LLC. They're the owner of 83 Somerstown Road. As I mentioned tonight, I am joined by Duncan Simpson, who is now in the red shirt and promoted to panelist, as well as Andre Lukanoff of Engineering Surveying Properties, the engineers for the project. As the chair mentioned, we are before you for an application for a wetlands permit and grading permit. It's just to restore certain disturbed wetlands on the property. Just briefly, by way of background, the property is about an 18-acre or 17.9-acre parcel in the town's R40 district and includes a sizable lake or pond on the property. The applicant initially submitted an application to your board back in November following a order to remedy on the property from October of last year. The order instructed the applicant to remedy certain violations of the town code, which effectively relate to removing more than 5 yards of materials without a filling and grading permit and removing materials within a wetland buffer without a wetland permit. So initially, the applicant was before you for permits in order to construct about a half-acre sandy beach on the property. Since that time and at this time, however, we updated the submission to your board dated July 22nd to include the applicant's current proposal, which is just to restore those prior disturbances. So at this time, no beach is proposed, and we're just restoring the area that was disturbed previously. So with that, in support of our application, we did submit, as I mentioned, on July 22nd, a response to the Nelson Pope Voorhees comment letter. We updated our EAF and then submitted, as the board requested, the mitigation plan, which Duncan will speak to in a minute. Briefly, if I may, Chairperson, I'll turn it over to Andre. I'll turn it first over to Andre, our engineer, just to walk the board through. If you'd like us to make a formal presentation of the site plan, we can. Or I'll have Duncan speak directly to the mitigation plan. And that'll be our presentation.
I don't know if you guys are hearing me right over here. I'm just having sort of some technical difficulties with the video part of it. But in December, this past December, there was a meeting in regards to the original violation, namely of actually building this beach without the permit, namely for the beach as well as for the grading and fill. Upon this violation, we requested, aid in regards to which mitigation for aquatic restoration needed to be done, and that was mainly recommended as one of the options was Princeton Hydro. So with that, we ended up actually coordinating with Princeton Hydro to actually get, number one, the sand removed, as well as actually the mitigation, especially of the aquatic areas, to be removed on that one. Beyond that, We were just trying to coordinate actually with the town as well to make sure that everything was properly done. And with that, Duncan probably can explain the rest of the plans in that regard.
You'd like, I can share my screen to show the plan. The overall intent is to restore it to the pre-existing conditions.
Duncan, can you just identify yourself for the record?
I'm Duncan Simpson with Perks and Hydro, ecologist. So as I was saying, the intent was to restore the affected area to pre-existing conditions by regrading the site. With 2 zones, native mix of riparian restoration seed mix and a lawn.
Sorry, Duncan, we had just a little bit of trouble hearing you. Just if you want to just relay to the board, I'm sorry, the mix of plantings.
So I will share. We have a riparian restoration mix. That's a mix of native plants, just shy of a couple dozen, including a little blue stem Indian grass, big blue stem, wild rye, soft rut, ironweed, milkweed, sneezeweed. The lawn restoration seed mix includes hard fescue, perennial ryegrass, and Kentucky bluegrass. One other thing I'll point out is that we're calling for 3 inches of organic leaf compost over the entire planting area to be blended into the fill with the propagation of the seeds.
Great. So that's, again, for the benefit of the board, we are no longer proposing any improvements to be utilized as the beach. This time, we're simply restoring the area that was previously disturbed without permit. Chairperson, you may be on mute.
Are you taking out the sand that was put into the site?
I'll let Andre respond to that, but it has been removed from that area, yes.
It has, okay. All right.
It has been removed and it's been stockpiled, but it probably will not be used for any future beach development on that one. It might be used with regular soils to improve some of the percolation rates in the area, which will actually benefit in drainage.
Okay.
But not related to the lake or pond.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
I had a couple of questions. First of all, I was wondering why, what the width of that shoreline restoration area is, and why you were putting more lawn back, like why it wasn't all just the restoration area.
With
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Is this any better if I move closer?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay. The width I will pull just momentarily, but the intent of the lawn was to pre-existing conditions, which had
Oh, okay.
what we were shown was a small strip of herbaceous plants and a lawn. So it was just what we estimated was where the pre-existing lawn ended and the herbaceous community started is where what we tried to recreate.
So tagging on to that, I'm wondering, so when the lawn crews come in, how are they going to handle a lawn right next to that wildflower mix? Like, is there anything that's separating the two? I'm just wondering if that, I've dealt with a lot of lawn services around here, and I could just envision them coming and weed whacking the beautiful native plants down when they're doing their lawn work.
Currently, there's nothing as designed. It could be remedied with a few posted signs to do not mow.
Right,
Yeah,
we
I
can
think that would be
instruct
good.
we can instruct those mowers too, so as to understand that that area is obviously sensitive for the purposes of restoration.
I think the signs would be an excellent idea, because I was just at a project yesterday where there was instructions and stuff was removed that wasn't supposed to be removed. It's, so you're dealing with it after the fact. So if there's any kind of way to assign or some kind of border.
Type of barrier, right?
Yeah, something like that. That would be great. The mix is really excellent. Looks like it'll be beautiful.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. All right, Valerie, where do we go from here?
So if this board wants to call for a public hearing for next month, and Steve Coleman, the environmental consultant for the planning board, will be going out to the site. He will be reviewing the mitigation plan, and we'll have a report for the board's meeting in September.
Okay. The September 7th meeting?
Does
Yes.
the EAC get involved because it's a wetland permit?
Yes, this also needs to be referred to the EAC as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Just a point of information, if I may, Chairperson, just for the referral to the EAC, does that require a resolution this evening, or is that just a formal referral by Ms. Minestra?
I don't think it usually requires a resolution. I believe it's part of
Sorry, not a resolution, a vote. My apologies.
So it's already in the code as a requirement. It doesn't require action by the board.
Great. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. So, and then I guess, is there any board members who wanted to do a site visit? Donna, did you want to do a site visit on that? Anybody else on the board want to do a site visit?
Yeah, I'd like to go. I'd like to join in, Carolyn.
Okay, I would too. So, maybe when we can't all go at once. But, so
Do it as a field trip, that's fine. Just tell us, well, I don't know.
I mean, you can if you notice it, but
yeah, we'll just try to split it up. So, and then maybe some of the EAC members can go at the same time. And this way won't have too many people, at various times tramping through the yard. So,
Sounds good.
and try and arrange that through Sandy. Okay,
No problem.
all right. And if we could get it done before the September 7th meeting, all the better.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
Okay, all right.
All your time, and thanks to everyone. We'll see you out on the site whenever you're all available.
Okay, all right. But like I said, we're going to need two different days, so we don't have a quorum going at any time.
Thank you. And just one more point of information, if I may, Kathy, is there a requirement that they vote to schedule the public hearing?
Yes.
sorry, yes. They vote to put it down for set the public hearing.
So, anyway, may I have a motion to set the public hearing for September 7th?
Make the motion to set the public hearing for September 7th.
Thank you, Jason. You said a second on that.
Yeah, I'll second that. Okay, I'll
Thank
second that.
Thanks, Manny. All right, Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jason, how do you vote?
Yes.
Manny, how do you
Yeah.
vote? And
Yes.
I vote yes as well. All right, so we will, assuming you get the notices out, have the public hearing starting on September 7th.
Great. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. And next we have River Noah.
So today, so this evening, similar to what took place at the town board, we are here tonight to talk to this board and get your comments. There is a public comment session, or excuse me, public comment period is open till September 6th. We are, like, myself, Kathy, and Dan are taking a substantive review of the draft environmental impact statement. We will have our comments to you within the next couple of weeks, clearly before September 6th. But in the meantime, what we'd like to do is hear comments from this board on that particular, this particular project, the environmental impact statement. And what I was planning to do is take your comments and incorporate those into the substantive review. This way, if for some reason there is a comment or discussion element that I'm already covering, then I'll make sure that it clearly it's already in the substantive review. But then also, if there are some other comments or questions that get raised tonight, I'll be able to also research the EIS to make sure what was those particular comments already addressed. Will they be addressed? Or if not, then I'll make sure that those also get added to the substantive comment review. And then the all public comments will need to be responded to in the final environmental impact statement, which the applicant will provide us, but it actually is the board's document. So we will work with the applicant as well as this board to come with a final environmental impact statement that this board can embrace.
Okay. Donna, Jason, or Manny, anybody have anything they want to say?
So I have a couple questions. One was addressing the county's letter that we received from the county. I thought, I didn't agree with everything, but I thought they had some good points. So I definitely didn't agree with the increased, the idea that it should be more density than they're proposing. I think that that would be going in the wrong direction. But I did feel that, and this is based on something Valerie said. This is not my original thought. I heard this, Valerie, you spoke to the town board. And this is something that I've always had a problem with this project, because the comprehensive plan really wanted housing for the people that live here in Ossining. And this, I don't think, does that. But Valerie brought up an excellent point that if there was senior housing where people that lived in single family homes could go into the senior 55 and over, then that would make available those single family homes to families, new families. And there's just a real need for that in our town, and this is not going to facilitate. This high end is only going to help people from other parts of the county and elsewhere. So I don't know, as a planning board, if we have any ability to make any decisions based on that, but I think almost everything that comes in front of us is really for upper end income, or people, not the mean, the average person in Ossining is not, this is for many of the things that come in front of us. So this just seems to be going more and more in that direction where there's no housing opportunities. I like the county's idea with the improving the connections between First and Second Avenue. I don't know if that I don't know how that can be addressed with all those retaining walls and everything, but I thought that somehow that should be addressed. The county sewer impacts, that should be addressed. The recycling and food scraps, that should be addressed. And then the green building technology. I still feel that this would be a much improved project if it wasn't hooking up to a gas line and if it had heat pumps, permeable pavement, native plants, reducing the lawn area, reducing mowing, and particularly, it's never been made clear what they're doing in those swales, if that's gonna be, you know, like a prairie look, and then they just bring in one of those big mowers once a year to cut it down, you know, like a field would be done, or if it's gonna be mowed every week. And I really hope it's not gonna be mowed every week. That's definitely not an environmental improvement. So then that's the county's letter that I was addressing, but then my issues, I see all these retaining walls, and that issue has come up. Particularly, there's apparently a very high retaining wall by Second Avenue. Someone said it was like 30 feet. I don't know what it is, but how do we get that information, how high the retaining walls are? There seems to be quite a lot of them on this project. And hopefully none of them are that massive, but I would definitely want that information. It still didn't seem like he came up with a plan for the invasive plants to be removed. So I want to make sure that that comes in when we do the site plan. And then I wasn't clear. He showed a lot of examples of what this farmhouse style, which I don't even know how that term comes to play, because my father was raised in a farmhouse. It didn't look like any of these places. So especially with all that glass. So I'm not really sure why it's called farmhouse, but I'm really concerned with that. It's the front entry building, he's calling it. It has the whole wall of glass. That is a huge impact on birds, and that should not be allowed. It's also not environmental to have a wall of glass is not really sustainable in any way. So I want to know the impacts of that. And just to clarify, the landscaping plan that he submitted, that was just for sort of like placement of where the plants are going to be. At this point, we're not, he's recommending 138 Norway spruce. So I'm sure that's not going to be in the final site plan. It's just, so I just want to make sure that that was just for kind of positioning. Then the other thing is he, in his presentation to the town that he just did, he said there's 2-car garages in the market rate unit. So I'm assuming that that's not the case in the affordable units. I want to make sure, like, we know.
There
how
are one car garages in the
One car,
other
okay.
units.
Because I thought that it was explained they have to be pretty similar to the market rate ones. So I want to know, like, what the difference between the affordable and the market rate, how different they're going to be. And I think that's it for me. That seems like a lot.
Yeah, Jason.
Sure, yeah. So I read through a bunch of it. I marked it up. I'll try to kind of go off what I remember. And I told Valerie I'm gonna write up some other comments. So I think in here there's reference to the town's 2015 comp plan. And then there are references to the kind of beginnings of the 2020 comp plan and intermediate, I guess, drafts or components of it. But now that that comp plan has been fully baked, I would like the applicant to, go through and look at how this and explain how this project is consistent with the new objectives of that comp plan, including, as Donna said, the type of housing, the amount of housing being added. And then to that end, there's a lot of instances where they refer to the comp plan and they don't mention if it's the 2015 or the 2020. So when they go through and make any sort of updates on their analysis, they should be clear which comp plan they're referring to. So vis-a-vis that, I believe one of the members of the public commented on it, and then I went and looked in the construction impacts section, and they mentioned some blasting may be required. And I'd really like to get a better idea if yes or no blasting is required, and then if so, how much? Because it is pretty close to sensitive receptors in residential areas. And, I'm already mindful of the impact this is going to have, an almost 2-year construction period on people who live nearby. And then to that end, and it may be very well in here, but if it's not, I wanted to mention, to the extent that this is kind of a raised area of land and then there's lower lying areas around it, what type of dust or other mitigation measures there'd be so that construction on the site doesn't lead to kind of the blowing of dust and other things into the surrounding neighborhoods. including during blasting. You know, I know there's certain types of fences, silt fences and things that can be used. I just wanted to get an understanding if there are any specific measures that have to be taken because of the topography of this site and how it lies compared to the surrounding areas. Another thing I noticed was, and I think it was a construction staging plan, it looks like they're gonna intend for people to park down in the field that's adjacent to 40 Croton Dam Road. And I understand, I guess, why they park there, but I want to kind of get a better feel for how that's going to be organized, if it's going to be orderly, especially because if, you know, I think at some point there's overlap of dozens of construction workers during certain phases, that there be ample parking, that those people don't overflow onto the street, that it doesn't kind of become unsightly for people driving by. Similar concern or question about the pool house that's going to be located pretty much as the closest built structure down near Croton Dam Road. If there's kind of what's going to attenuate sound for the residents that actually live there and want to use that facility, from cars passing by and other ambient noise near the road. Because, you know, right, we have a number of renderings, but it doesn't look like there's any sort of buffering, landscaping or anything like that to, you know, make that area actually desirable and usable by the residents of the neighborhood. Generally have the same concern as Donna, that I forget, but I think the applicant mentioned in one of the presentations, you know, the pricing on these units could be $750,000 or $1 million. So I don't know that the prime target resident of this development would be somebody downsizing from a single family home in Ossining, based on kind of my own independent looking at what the median sale price is in Ossining and what it's kind of been trending as. So maybe if they could give a better explanation of how these units might either A, be marketed to people in this community, or how that pricing might reflect a price point that people in this community could move into, or not, but, you know, affirmatively state such. I have notes all over it. That's a good start. I'll let someone else go. If I think of more, I'll either raise it now or I can email with Valerie and everybody else.
Manny, do you have any comments?
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, just a few actually. Yeah, I agree with Donna on the green sustainable infrastructure. In fact, in section 3A-15 of their volume 1, they're incentivizing green practices. They stated they were using a white membrane heat reflector roof to lower the surface temperature by up to 50% at peak times. This is good because it reduces the heat island effect that's going to be peaking in the summer months, and our summers are becoming hotter and hotter. Yet, but if you look at their graphics, all of the roofs are dark. So I was just wondering if there's a change in design strategy, and if they can clarify that. Regarding the glass, yeah, so the glass is also sizable. So I'll be interested to find out what their target U values are for that envelope. I don't know if this is something that we talk about now, or if this is something that John Hamilton will be looking into more thoroughly once they start building it. But I'll be interested to see what the target U value is for the exterior walls. And being that this is a former psychiatric hospital, I was looking through the volumes on any identification of contaminants, lead, mercury, asbestos, their persistent organic pollutants, BOPs, but I didn't find any. So I was curious to see if the structure have been some of these contaminants will be absorbed by the soil, and I would be interested to see if there was an identification of contaminants, and if they exist, an outline on how they propose to do remediation efforts. And lastly, there's also a letter by, I guess also what Donna mentioned earlier about affordable housing. How do we marry the letter of Commissioner Norma Drummond, their concerns for which I'm sure you've read that in her letter, that it wasn't consistent with the sustainable offsetting plan for affordable housing. So I'm curious to see how we're going to marry that, or how we're going to factor their concerns into this development. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Manny, is that a question?
Yeah,
that you're
it is a
looking
question.
for the applicant to answer, or is that one that you're just wanted in general? How does the town deal with those?
Well, actually, yes, it's a general question for us, actually, and of course, it's ultimately it's the developers honest to answer it. How we marry this to the letter of Norma Drummond. So yes, the answer is yes. I'm interested to see how that's addressed.
So Carolyn, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead, finish your conversation with Manny, and then I have some issues as well.
So I just wanted to note, so when county planning boards provide recommendations, and this will really not necessarily fall on the planning board to make the decision on this, but it will be the town board, that ultimately, if the town board disagrees with the county's comments or some of the county's comments, they can vote to disagree with those comments in terms of acknowledging that, yes, the comment was submitted, but we disagree with the comments and these are our reasons set forth. But the vote has to be a supermajority in favor of overriding the county's comments.
So
And it's not the count, it's all the comments, it's each individual comment.
So this all is decided basically in November, right?
No, it would be decided once this project seeker is complete and the town board decides it wants to move forward with the zoning and we're ready for the site plan approvals. That's when it would take place. Correct, Kathy?
Before they make a determination on the rezoning, they would have to override, like you said, the county's recommendations. And by supermajority vote.
That's just letting the board know.
But it is something that we can still address ask the applicant to address too, as part of the seeker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Review, because they're ultimately need to address, concerns too raised by the county and this board. So it is appropriate to ask the applicant to address that question too, Manny.
Right,
Okay.
and the county's comments are technically part of the public record and the applicant will have to respond to those comments directly.
Thanks for the clarification.
So just a couple of things and to kind of with one of my concerns was that the proposal was real, or was only kind of focuses on the old comprehensive plan and not the new one, and that we're not seeing enough green stuff. I mean, not only heat pumps, but we should be looking to have, if not charging stations, at least wiring in each of the units that would allow charging stations, or even adaptability eventually for perhaps batteries. I mean, I think they're going to have a number of the roofs, if I'm not mistaken, that will have are kind of southeast facing, southwest facing, and so that maybe to make the units ultimately more affordable to live in if they could do solar panels on some of these roofs. The technology these days is a lot lighter than it used to be. Also, we might want to point out to Glenn at some point that there's between the president's new bill and New York State just passed a whole bunch of incentives for greener building, that, you know, there may be ways for him to save some money in this project and doing those green things. I do think he needs to address but as you said, he has to address the Westchester County Planning Board memo. He also talked about needing variances. I'd be interested to know what variances he thinks he needs, in addition to zoning changes, or maybe he was just being inartful in his speech. The affordability issue does concern me a little bit, but I'm also wondering if some of that could be solved with there just being some different size units. In other words, it doesn't necessarily have to be these very large, everything have to be as large as I mean, as he's talking about. Maybe there needs to be more variability in size. The retaining wall, I feel like there's been really insufficient information from him on the retaining wall. What is the size? How big is, not only the size, what's the length of the retaining walls? What kind of construction are they looking at? Is there going to have to be fill if there's retaining walls? There's a lot of unanswered questions with respect to that. Let's see, I had some other notes here. I mean, let me go back to the green stuff for a minute. I just see that this project could be, I mean, I'd like to see him not use gas in this project. I'd rather really like to see him use other, make it all electric and put in solar panels. I don't know if all of that is workable, but I'd like to see them try. Let's see. Because that was sort of, because if we're looking at this, he was talking, okay, let's back up to size for a minute. He was talking about the units being between 1,700 and 2,400 square feet. And that was only for the first 2 levels. There would be an unfinished 3rd level, which would be the basement, which people could finish. That would produce, I mean, you're basically looking at floors. If the unit is 2,400 square feet, you're looking, and it's 2 floors, you're looking at 2 floors of 1,200 square feet, which means your the 3rd floor would probably be about the same size, in which case you're talking about a unit that's 3,600 square feet. If you cut some of that out and make some of those units a little smaller, maybe he does get a little more, in a sense, density, and that he gets more units, but in the same space, and maybe they become more affordable. I'm just kind of throwing it out. So those are some of my thoughts. One of the things in terms of connectivity, and that I really liked about his prior project, was that there were walking paths that were open to the public that went through the property. And I'm wondering if that's not something that we would like to encourage. Or if not directly through, at least around, so that there is more connectivity. Okay.
I had some more that I found.
Okay.
Yeah, great. So, and I have a feeling, and it's the case for me too, even here, a lot of the public, I think when they read these large statements of environmental impact, they look to the executive summary to really give them the highlights. And on page I-29 and I-30, that's where they do the comparison of alternatives table. And I know that's necessary and a component of these, but I'd really like to see, for these kind of very straightforward conclusions made about this project, maybe references in that table to where in the chapters someone reading just the executive summary could go. So for instance, for land use zoning and public policy for this proposed project, it says rezoning to existing MF zoning district, proposed use consistent with comp plan. So, that use would be consistent with land use and zoning and public policy. If it's not going to be expanded upon in that comparison table, and I understand why it wouldn't, it would be useful to have references there such that someone who is concerned about that impact could know where to go in the several hundred pages that follow. It would benefit us as well, but especially someone who's concerned about particular impacts. Going back to that point I mentioned about the staging area being near Croton Dam Road, along with porta potties and the construction trailer, I'm wondering if the phasing they intend to build this out at would allow the staging area to start more internal to the site and only eventually become peripheral as they kind of fill out and finish the building of the roadways and sewers and drainage and then the actual construction. Maybe it need not be right along Croton Dam Road until it has to be. And that's just, perhaps that's not possible with construction phasing, but if it is, I think that's something the applicant could look into. And then, going back to the point several of us have made about the affordability and the size of the units, I think something that stuck with me and I'd like to see either cleaned up in the final document is, there is a comment, the residents will be a mix of those from the town and village of Ossining. And as we kind of generally discussed here, maybe the price point of these units isn't for those people. So for statements that are kind of statements of conclusion, perhaps either reference to some sort of technical analysis or, oh yeah, here it's on page I-21. The residents at River Knoll will be a combination of current town and village residents looking to downsize. And so maybe some of them will be, but on what basis are some of these conclusions made? And I know I'm looking at the executive summary, and I know that condenses down conclusions that are more fully explained in subsequent chapters, but maybe for those kind of larger conclusions that are important to the public interest, the applicant could give a little more, flesh it out a little more, even in the executive summary. And then I hadn't commented at first, but now that everybody raised their points on it, I too, I guess, wasn't aware of kind of the height and magnitude of some of these retaining walls. So a better explanation of that, and what might be seen by people in the surrounding neighborhoods, what the materiality is, though it might not be determined yet exactly what color things would be made out of. That would be important for me to understand as well. And the county's comment about connecting First and Second Avenue, or that there being an opportunity to do that. I don't know how that would work with this plan, but I'd like the applicant to explore, at least if it wouldn't work, explain to us why it wouldn't work to create some sort of connection through the site to expand the street grid. And I didn't know about the previous project's walking trails, but that's a really good point. And I wonder if there's a way to incorporate that again so that members of the surrounding community can walk through what the applicants, explain he intends to be a very nice new development and enjoy the scenery as well. So that'll round them out for now, I guess. And I'll probably have some more that I come up with in the next week or two.
Okay. All right, Valerie, What
Sorry,
was-
I have another, sorry.
Okay,
No,
Jason.
this is an important one. So I, maybe I wasn't fully aware. I guess the town code allows construction. It says, at least the applicant writes between 8 AM and 8 PM, Monday through Friday. So in terms of the level of kind of construction lighting that one would need to do work after dusk, much of the year around here, after 5 or 6 o'clock, it's dark out. I'd really want to understand what construction work's going to be done during those later, twilight or nighttime hours. And in turn, how much, construction lighting might be required, because that could have an impact on, nearby residents who are used to an undeveloped site, having, noise and light impacts within what purports to be the construction hours permitted by the town, but during hours that are sensitive and people are, home with their families, eating dinner or sitting in their backyards. So it would be important to me for the applicant to explain kind of generally how that would be mitigated. Maybe the work that is intended to be done after hours is not of the type to cause those disturbances, but they should affirmatively state that if that's the case. And if not, kind of explain mitigation measures that could be used to offset those impacts.
Yeah, so I have something to add related to what Jason mentioned. Typically, after the regular hours by afforded building permits are between the hours of 8 and 5, or basically, within that time frame. Anything beyond the 5, at least in New York City, you get a variance if you're going to work overtime. That's correct. Is it the same here in Austining? Is that standard in Austining as well, that developers or contractors will seek a variance approval before they can work overtime? After hours, I mean. I guess that's a general question.
Until 8 PM, I guess.
Oh, they're allowed until 8 PM?
Mhm.
But anything beyond that, can they seek a variance if they need to work, or that's disallowed in?
Well, they'd have to get some kind of exception or waiver from the code, and I guess they'd have to go to but that's a building code, right? Restriction.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, after hours are allowed by building code if it's justifiable, if something that can only be done at night. Or if the schedule is delayed and they need to, do more work.
Saw Sandy shaking her head, so it doesn't, right? The town does not allow that, correct?
No, they do allow till 8 PM, but nothing past that.
Okay.
Does
As
anyone,
far as I know, I've never seen a variance or any kind of special permission for any time after that.
in the case of an emergency, repair, something like that, potentially, but
is the work permitted during the 8 to 8 hours, the same intensity of work so something you might do at 10 AM is the same thing you might do at 7:59 PM before your construction window cuts off? Okay. That makes sense for practical reasons. Okay. And I don't know that, and perhaps this stage of seeker review is not where an applicant would talk about it, but will there be any sort of hotline or monitored kind of email or comment avenue where neighbors might say, I know you're doing the best you can, but it's too loud. My patio is dusty every morning. I can't hear the birds, or comments where the quality of life surrounding is impacted such that they actually could direct those to the ultimate developer. I don't know that they would know at this time, but even a suggestion that some sort of website or some sort of community channel would be open so that they can, especially if this project gets built, be a good neighbor to the people they're going to be neighbors with.
Wouldn't that just be contacting the building department?
No, because I would think contacting the building department might be to file a formal complaint, and perhaps there's, a good developer would want to know that, hey, I know you're doing your on-site monitoring, but this is the reality, 3 houses down the block right outside of the perimeter of your site, and maybe without having to pursue that, formal avenue in the town, building department's resources, I don't know how thin they are already stretched. So just an additional avenue for people to maybe, cooperatively try to solve problems during the course of development.
Okay, anyone else have anything at this point? Okay, so.
Sorry,
Val-
one more, and I'll let everybody leave everyone alone. And I've seen this in other environmental impact statements. Sometimes developers try to speak to it, sometimes they don't. I think this one estimates about an 18 to 21 month construction phase and a certain phasing of the type of work that has to get done in a certain order. So I would like to understand the timing of, if they are able to start in April, their 18 to 21 month phasing works, because that lines up with when certain work would get done, freezing conditions or not. Or if they start in an August month, does that now make it 6 months longer because they can only do certain things certain months? And if that's in here and I didn't get to it, that's totally fine. That's I will look further. But if that's not something that's contemplated, I think it would be useful to this board and to the public to understand that timeline as well.
Yeah, but I don't think, I didn't see a construction schedule in this submittal. I don't think they have it yet or have any idea how they're gonna, proceed. But I guess my question is, once this is approved, will the developer be giving us a construction schedule? That way we can more or less see what, what's coming down the pipe? Is that something that we normally extended to the planning board?
I think,
Construction staging plan
Yeah.
and phases, and to ask for truck routes and that kind of construction management plan that would have truck routes and delivery times and internal circulation. That's all something you could ask for.
Yeah,
right.
especially if it's going to impact the utilities, the city utilities connection.
Right, once the secret review is complete, there will be site plan approvals required from this board. And there are clearly some elements of the environmental impact statement that the applicant is saying that they'll deal with during site plan approval. I mean, some we're going to request information now, and I think there are a number of items that this board also raised that the applicant said we'll deal with down the line that I think they can probably address now. But this will go through a site plan approval process as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, do we have anything else that we need to address this evening, Valerie?
No, I mean, I'll just let the board know that we've been going through, oh, go ahead, Jason.
I have one more. And this speaks to conformity with comprehensive or other kind of county, state, local plans. New York State recently passed the Climate Act. I know this because I was dealing with it on a project I'm working on in my job. And I just wanted to know, what of the environmental aspects, the green aspects of this proposed project kind of dovetail with the goals of that Climate Act, because it has to do with certain reductions of CO2 levels and GHGs. So if the applicant could ultimately speak to how this proposed project conforms with that, other public policy, I think that might be useful. And that's it, I promise.
Okay.
I just let this board know that we are going through, and like I said, doing a substantive review. There are a number of items that this board has already raised that we've also tagged similar to like the comprehensive plan, that it does not talk about the adopted comprehensive plan, and it needs to. Also the retaining wall heights, and the visual impacts that is going to occur is something that we've also identified. There are still some zoning issues that need to be dealt with in terms of the adoption of the MF zone, and specifically how this project does or does not meet the zoning requirements. There's also some other items dealing with some of the cut and fills, and so we are going, like I said, we're going through it, page by page, and identifying things that need to be corrected, made consistent, or provided some additional information for this board's review.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess, I can ask for a motion to adjourn unless somebody else has something they want to add to this, or Kathy, do you have any comments for us on this? No? Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, second? Do
I'll
I get-
second.
Okay, thank you. All right, Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
Manny, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jason, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So with that, I will say good night. See everybody after Labor Day, and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Okay, great.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
You
Yep.
too. Thank you, Carolyn.
Good
Good
night.
night. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.